Hey folks, how we doing today? It's me again, Shannon Fox here, Devoted Patriots 2 channel, and I have got some great news if you haven't already heard. Now, normally I don't drink beer during the week. I maybe wait till the weekend most of the time, but today I had to pop a top. Why? It's celebration time, folks. We have won. The conservatives have taken back the House today. Not just with the majority, but taking back the speakership, taking it back from that rhino Kevin McCarthy, who has been sabotaging everybody that's been trying to become speaker ever since he lost his job due to Matt Gaetz throwing him up for a floor vote. I'll show you what I'm talking about, folks. It's going to be a little bit of a long video. Matt Gaetz gets a little bit winded over on Steve Bannon's War Room, but it is all good information. He explains how Kevin McCarthy literally worked against everybody and got busted for it in real time, which actually made the difference of how everybody voted in the end. That's how we ended up with Mike Johnson, because Mike Johnson played his cards right. He exposed Kevin McCarthy and his 40-something holdouts that he was promising the world to. Now, if you don't know exactly what I'm referring to, stick around, folks. This is a really excellent video. Tons of information. I actually listened to it 2 times just because it was so packed full of all the mischievous behavior that Kevin McCarthy's been trying to pull in order to hold on to his speakership. He figured if we couldn't find a speaker long enough, eventually somebody would offer him his job back. He even threw it out there a couple of days ago that he wanted to be throw his hat back in the ring and have Jim Jordan as his assistant. Come on, man. That's some bullshit right there, Kevin McCarthy. That was never going to work. And Jim Jordan would never be your second. He would never go for that either. That was just a dumb ploy to try to prevent anybody from becoming speaker. Kevin McCarthy thought people would hold out long enough and eventually beg for him to come back. Well, sorry about your luck, Rhino Kevin. But now we know just how things work in the government. We have exposed about 25 rhinos along the way of this 3-week hiatus. And a lot of people were really, really pissed off at Matt Gaetz when this thing really started. But now I must say, it's all about the results. And the results are, we win, folks. It was an awesome day for us, for the American people, the conservative movement, the Republicans that care about this country. We got a straight win. Now, if you don't know who Mike Johnson is one of Matt Gaetz' best friends. They've been on the Judiciary Committee for 7 years together. Mike Johnson is a great supporter of Trump. And Mike Johnson is one of the great patriots from Louisiana who's been doing his best to fight on the Judiciary Committee against this weaponization of government. Now let's go ahead and get into the video, and you'll get to hear all the dirty tricks Kevin McCarthy has been pulling for the last 3 weeks trying to maintain power. It's disgusting, folks, but everybody needs to hear this. Matt Gaetz just drops the hammer with the truth bombs. Here we go.
I want to share the picture. I'm bringing Matt Gaetz, Congressman Gaetz right now, but with the epic, historic, unprecedented, walk us through it.
Oh, thanks so much, Stephen. I have to start by thanking the War Room Posse. This would not have happened without you. I can legitimately say that the feedback people were getting from our activists all over the country led them to the best result. And I also want to thank you, Steve, because though I get very frustrated with you sometimes when I'm trying to call you and get advice and you're broadcasting, 87 hours a day, I do appreciate in the off hours your counsel. And it's important for people to know how gracious you are with that and how much I appreciate it and how much my colleagues appreciate it. So I want to give you the first draft.
Let me just say one thing, and I always defer. I always defer to Gaetz because this is a young man that's got he's playing 5-dimension chess all the time, and sometimes we have crosswords, a little hot talking, but it's all in the process of making sure things run well. Matt, terrific job. Walk us through what happened.
Great job, Matt.
No, it's the Irish in you and the Scotch Irish in me, maybe. So, all right, here's what happened. The chapter of this that was dispositive, the crescendo, begins as Tom Emmer is withdrawing from the race yesterday.
Now, folks, listen closely. Matt Gaetz starts breaking it down, play by play, what happened since Tom Emmer showed up on the scene a few days ago and decided he wanted to be speaker. And he breaks it all down and then even refers back to what's been going on for the last 3 weeks as well. It's all tied into this.
yesterday. I told Emmer on Sunday he was not going to get there. He was going to move like a hot knife through butter through about the first, 80% of the conference, but that there was going to be a series of votes that were never going to be there for him. He wanted to run through it, and I said, Tom, here's the deal. You can have your runway, but when you get to that last group that will not support you, you cannot drag this on for days. You cannot drag this on for weeks. You cannot play into what Kevin McCarthy was working the whole time to try to get people to believe that the only person that could govern the Republican conference is Kevin McCarthy. So Emmer agrees that he's going to have his shot, but that it's going to be quick. So we get that through the gestation system early yesterday. So as Emmer is withdrawing, Mark Molinaro, a moderate New York freshman Republican, stands up at the microphone and says, well, instead of restarting this process and having a candidate forum and sending everybody home for a good cry, let's just take a non-binding poll on where people would be on the person who came in second to Tom Emmer, and that was Mike Johnson. And Elise Stefanik said, well, that's against the rules. The rules don't contemplate it. We can't do that. And brilliantly, Mark Molinaro says, then I move for unanimous consent that the rules be waived and we take a poll on whether or not Mike Johnson could be our speaker nominee. And
Perfect.
Guess who objects to that unanimous consent request? Kevin McCarthy.
Who was that?
Kevin McCarthy stands up and
come on.
erupts and says, I object to doing a roll call on Mike Johnson. And Mike Johnson was exasperated. All the times
Dirty
Johnson
Kevin.
had voted for McCarthy, had carried his water, maybe even voted for some bills he didn't like because he was working toward the Republican conference's stated objectives under McCarthy. And here was the thing. It showed everyone that it was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Scalise. It was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Jim Jordan. It was McCarthy working to knife everyone, and he hadn't yet figured out a way to knife Mike Johnson. And so he was worried that there was going to be this great unifying moment, and he scuttled the unifying moment. So because of McCarthy's objection, we had to have this 3-hour delay. And, candidates announce again, have another forum. And guess what happens during that delay, Steve? Patrick McHenry runs to the House floor, opens it up out of recess, and then adjourns till noon today. Now, why did he do that? Because they were setting up a play.
Dirty tricks, folks. That's some bullshit right there. You see what I'm talking about? Patrick Henry, the Speaker Pro Tem, was trying to help Kevin McCarthy play delay a game in order to prevent Mike Johnson from being able to take a poll, a vote, kind of like not a secret ballot, but a poll as to who would oppose him, how many of the 217 that he needs to get to would he actually be able to get just on the fly. And Kevin McCarthy, of all people, can't have that. Kevin McCarthy is the architect of the sabotage for 3+ weeks now, and he's been blaming Matt Gaetz the entire time for blowing up his job, for blowing up McCarthy's chance to stay speaker. That's what Kevin McCarthy's mad about. He's mad about losing power. He's not mad about anything else other than he is no longer in the position to control the Republican Party anymore. The Uniparty has spoken, and the Conservative Party, the America First Party, have the last word. And that's nothing but good news, folks. I love this. I'm glad to see we get some good news occasionally. Matter of fact, I heard that the Georgia case on Trump will be thrown out of court. That's what I heard, speculation from a couple of different people on the fact that Trump, they believe now that Trump has got presidential immunity behind this Georgia case. Now, we'll have to see how that all plays out, folks, in the courts, but it does look like it's going that way as well. Just a little side note. But let's go ahead and get back into dirty, what would be the best word? Disrespectful, deplorable, more like desperate. I would say Kevin McCarthy is desperate. The old desperate Kevin has been trying his best to somehow find a way to get his job back, and it ain't working. Cat's out of the bag. He's been exposed, and because of his exposure, with what happened today, we got us the best man for the job for Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson is as good as Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, or even Steve Scalise, some of the best representatives we've got in our Congress, as far as I'm concerned.
play to block Mike Johnson with write-in votes in the intra-conference process for Kevin McCarthy. They were promising people hearings on their favorite legislation, passage of bills. I heard people promised, oh, maybe you'll get a chairmanship. And the play was for McCarthy to return as speaker and then Jim Jordan to be the deputy speaker in some sort of like Dwight Schrute assistant to the regional manager posture. And that would have been debasing to Jordan, someone I like a great deal, and it would have been empowering to McCarthy. So Garrett Graves and all these people are working to try to effectuate this return of McCarthy. And they're telling us they're going to be 100 votes for McCarthy on the write-in. You know how many there were? 33 on the first write-in. So they flame out terribly. Mike Johnson's gaining momentum. Ultimately, McCarthy gets 43 to vote for him on a secret ballot, but Mike Johnson gets a majority, and then he says, you know what I want? I want a roll call vote, so that those 43 would have to announce themselves as being for a candidate who wasn't even running instead of a unifying force like Mike Johnson. And when we called for the roll call, do you know how many people voted for Kevin McCarthy? 0. He went from zero. So he went from promising 100 votes to delivering 43 to 0 willing to vote for him. And everyone in the room knew at that moment that I wasn't the force for chaos. I wasn't causing disunity. That for the last 3 weeks, the reason the House of Representatives has been paralyzed is because for his own selfish gain, Kevin McCarthy was sabotaging the candidacy of anyone else because he was plotting a return. And we stopped it. And in the place of Kevin McCarthy, we get a Bayou, Louisiana Mike Johnson, a brilliant constitutional attorney. He has been my seatmate in the House Judiciary Committee for 7 years. For 7 years, we have worked against the illegitimate impeachments, against the weaponization of this government. This guy did the toughest cases before the Louisiana Supreme Court. He is sharp. He will be as respected in the halls of in the homes of our most meaningful, righteous, and patriotic donors as he will at the rallies with our most enthusiastic and meaningful activists. It is going to be a great moment for the House. And you know what? At the very end, when some people didn't know if they could still even bring back McCarthy, a few of them just left the room and didn't vote. And the swamp is on the run. MAGA is ascendant. And if you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, then you're not paying attention. But they are crying, they are hand-wringing and bedwetting over on K Street.
Let's get some salty tears flowing, folks. Let's share the hell out of this video. It's going to be a little bit long for you folks, but Matt Gaetz is dropping the bombs, telling the truth, breaking it down, explaining how Kevin McCarthy tried to stab everybody in the back just to try to maintain power. He's not a Republican. He is a self-centered narcissist that only cares about power. It doesn't matter what team he's on. He is bad for the game.
Because we have an honorable, righteous man who is about to take this position. He's going to do great things for the country.
I want to make sure we go back to this because of the 20. Once you made the vote, once Mike Johnson said, I want it on the record. We're not going to go to the floor because McCarthy's guys blocked it, but I want it on the record here. Not one of the 43 stood up and said, I'm voting for McCarthy, correct?
No, and obviously because McCarthy and Graves and these guys were running this because they were out promising the world to people, they voted for McCarthy. But then Kevin McCarthy, after voting on the secret anonymous ballot for himself, then had to stand up and vote for Mike Johnson after his objections had been overrun, after his coalition had dissolved, and after the sad hopes of a desperate man trying to cling to power were vanquished.
I want to go back to the specter. We've called it the specter of McCarthy has loomed over this entire thing, and the mainstream media refused. They kept saying we were the causes of chaos. This is because the lobbyists, the corporatists, the oligarchs on Wall Street, big tech, have control of him and this apparatus. They've had it now for over a decade.
Now listen closely, folks. This is why it was so hard to put somebody in Kevin McCarthy's place. It wasn't because there wasn't a better man for the job. There's a dozen better, if not 24 better than Kevin McCarthy by far. But the problem was Kevin McCarthy has had a stranglehold on the party because he controls a lot of the fundraising. He controls a lot of the lobbyist money coming in, special interest, establishment types that want to continue to facilitate war, continue to spend on green new energy crap, and continue to just let the Democrats and the Biden administration have their way with us. That's over, folks. The House is now solid as a rock. I have to believe that from this point forward, it's only going to work bigger, better, and faster with more results. That's what I have to believe, folks. We finally got somebody in there that's the real deal. I love it. I love it. Mike Johnson, come on with it.
Right, and they don't want to give it up. That was at the end of the day. That's what the fight was about.
Right. When they are in control, the American people get chaos. We get chaos with no budgets, with rising debts, with an administrative bureaucratic state that has seemingly no check, with all of these performative resolutions and investigations that don't result in meaningful change for our people. That's chaos. I have tried to bring order out of that chaos. And the reason it took me a little longer than expected, the reason it took 3 weeks instead of 3 days, is because Kevin McCarthy leveraged the last vestiges of his power to try to block any other human of any other ideology from being able to assume the speakership. And he was defeated. The swamp was defeated. And It would not have happened without this posse. It would not have happened without some great work from people like Jody Arrington, Clay Higgins, Scott Perry. We had a great team working to give Mike Johnson the support he needed to build a coalition. Kevin Hearn was an absolute star. Mark Green was the star. There is going to be a real opportunity for us to come together. It is on our terms.
This is why
it is their surrender on our terms.
Right. This is what Green said when Green dropped out and said, he tweeted out, he says, their games being played. Those are the games we're talking about. But also, Emmer and Scalise had a role in this also. This was really a unifying moment.
Now listen to this, folks. This is where Steve Scalise realizes that McCarthy, pretending to back him, was really on the sly, whispering in people's ears, trying to prevent anybody from becoming speaker so Kevin could try to slide back in and get his job back somehow. The way it works for most places, when you get fired, you don't get an opportunity to slide your way back in there. You're out of there, Kevin. You're just another representative now. You no longer have a voice in the House, and I am so glad for it. I can't tell you enough how much that just makes me want to smile.
For the entire conference, didn't they have a role in this also?
Yeah, and I respect these men, and I know they might not be the favorite of your audience, but there was a moment when I went to Emmer and Scalise and I said, look, fellas, like now you see it. You see it plain as day that the person who was working against you all along was Kevin McCarthy. And Steve Scalise, like the Italian godfather, sat in the corner as McCarthy was trying to block his fellow Louisianan Mike Johnson, and member after member came up to Steve Scalise, and he would give them advice and counsel people respect Steve so much and listen to him. And you watched Steve Scalise put the final dagger in the heart of the hopes of Kevin McCarthy's return, and it was a beautiful chef's kiss because Steve Scalise actually was not treated fairly during this process. Kevin did everything he could to hurt Steve, and the fact that Steve now gets to put Mike Johnson in that chair over Kevin McCarthy's attempted comeback is glorious.
Glorious, folks.
Another Louisiana. Real quickly, I know you got to bounce, but you, in your 7 years as the wingman with Johnson, he's very focused on the administrative state. He's very focused on the deep state. He's as a constitutionalist, he's beyond upset about what's happened to DOJ. Walk me through what do you think that's going to take as far as the speakership?
Well, Mike Johnson lashes a technical proficiency to go after the administrative state with a real desire and willingness to do so. We have had some people demonstrate great proficiency, but maybe not as much willingness. And then some people aren't willing at all. Mike Johnson sees the weaponized administrative state for what it is. The best questioning that I've seen from any member on any subject in the 118th Congress was last year when Mike Johnson pinned Merrick Garland down on critical race theory and the fact that his own son-in-law was profiting off of it and Garland was then serving as the muscle.
I remember that clearly, folks. I actually made a video about it. Like he said, it's been about a year ago, but I remember that video very well. Mike Johnson is actually one of our great fighters on our Judiciary Committee, helping hammer these idiots like Christopher Ray, Merrick Garland, Anthony Blinken. He is one of the great fighters, and I must say, folks, for the country, that's a straight win. I didn't expect to see Mike Johnson get the job, but all in all, like I said last night, Byron Donaldson or Mike Johnson would be a great choice, and we have done it, folks. We have got 220 Republicans, 100% of the Republican conference voted for Mike Johnson, hands down. Love it, I love it, folks. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below, folks. Give me a big thumbs up, American flag, and a big high five, whatever you want to do in the comment section below. Just let me know if you're as excited about this change as I am. Over and out, folks.